He was a master of the mask, a man who had everything: a panoramic view, a perfect suit, and an 18-year marriage built on absolute trust. But behind Jackson's sharp gaze lay a hollow void, fueled by 1,000 whispered betrayals. One husband, 2 lives, 1,000,000 lies. When a single message shatters the illusion, the women in his life must face a devastating truth: the man they loved never existed. Experience the chilling collapse of a world built on deception. When the lies finally run out, the silence will be deafening. Silence and lies. How far can you run from yourself? Silence and lies. The sun was setting over the city like a crimson shroud, and the skyscrapers carried the flames of the day in their glass windows. Jackson stood at his panoramic office window, a glass of whiskey in his hand, watching the dusk. He was 45 years old, possessing that deep, dangerous charm that only years can bestow. Gray hair had begun to mark his temples, but it lent him an air of maturity rather than age. His Italian suit fit his frame perfectly. His shoulders were broad, his posture erect, and his gaze sharp, yet utterly hollow. There was a strange void in his eyes, as if the man inside had long since migrated elsewhere, leaving only an image behind. As the city lights began to flicker on one by one, Jackson's face remained expressionless. Neither happiness nor sadness, only that deep, weary emptiness. A notification vibrated on his phone. A message. A name appeared on the screen. Lily. Beneath it, a single sentence. "Can we meet tonight?" Jackson stared at the message for a long time. His fingers trembled slightly before touching the screen. Then he typed, 8 o'clock, the usual place. Lily. At 26, she possessed a blend of childish innocence and feminine allure. She had long chestnut hair, hazel eyes, and a face that was quick to smile. She had entered Jackson's life 6 months ago during a business dinner. At the time, Lily was the company's new marketing consultant, young, excited, and full of hope for life. At first glance, Jackson had seen something in her. Perhaps that light of hope he had long since lost. Perhaps just the allure of something he could never truly possess. Or perhaps she was simply a new tool to fill his void. Jackson slipped the phone into his pocket, finished his drink, and left the office. He caught his reflection in the elevator mirror. He noticed the mask-like expression on his face. He had been wearing this mask for years. He was so accustomed to it that he no longer remembered his real face. When he returned home, his wife Elena was in the kitchen. She was 42, but her beauty had never faded. Her black hair fell over her shoulders as she prepared dinner with graceful movements. Her dress was simple yet elegant. The bracelets on her arms chimed softly. Fresh vegetables, spices, and a bottle of olive oil sat on the counter. The kitchen smelled warm and inviting. When she saw Jackson, that familiar smile appeared on his face, the warm expression of unconditional trust built over years. There was a spark in her eyes, as if she still felt the same joy seeing him as she did on their first day. "You're late," she said in a soft voice, devoid of reproach. "You look tired. Was it a hard day?" Jackson nodded as he emptied his coat pockets. He dropped his keys on the table and loosened his tie. "Busy day. Endless meetings. I'll need to go to Atlanta on Thursday for a new client meeting. It might take 3 days." Elena asked no questions. She never did. As she carried the dinner plates to the table, she nodded with a faint smile. It was the 18th year of their marriage, and she trusted her husband so completely that the word suspicion was foreign to her. She believed everything Jackson said, because for 18 years she had seen no reason for Jackson to lie to her, or so she thought. Jackson sometimes marveled at this blind faith, and sometimes, for some reason, he felt a sense of loathing toward it. Elena's innocence gave him both a sense of security and a strange discomfort, because she believed him to be a better man than he actually was. Dinner passed in silence. Elena spoke of light topics: the neighbor's new car, a novel she was reading for her book club, an exhibition they could visit next weekend. Her tone was soft and peaceful. Jackson nodded and smiled, but his mind was elsewhere. As he lifted his fork, he was thinking of Lily. Her innocent face, the dimples that appeared when she laughed, the message on his phone. At 9 o'clock, he stood up. "I need to look over some files," he said, retreating to his study. Elena didn't object. She never did. She began to clear the dishes. In his room, Jackson picked up his phone. Lily's photo was on the screen, laughing, her hair fluttering in the wind, with the sea and sunset in the background. Jackson opened her message. "Why didn't you come? I waited for you." His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He started to write something, then deleted it. Then he wrote again. "I'll make it up to you tomorrow, I promise." Another lie added to the pile, a new one among hundreds. When Lily first met Jackson, she was in the loneliest period of her life. A new city, a new job, and no one around her. Her family lived in another state, and she hadn't made friends yet. Every evening when she returned to her small studio apartment, the silence stifled her. Jackson had shown her special interest from day one. He treated her differently than the other employees. They started going out for lunch, then dinner. Jackson talked a lot about his work, his dreams, his youth, but he rarely spoke of his private life. Lily didn't dare to ask. Sometimes she would notice the wedding ring on his finger, but then it would be gone. Then it would be there again. This inconsistency troubled her, but she was afraid to ask, because deep down she knew the truth. She just wasn't ready to accept it. Because when Jackson looked at her, truly looked at her, Lily felt like the only person in the world. Those looks enveloped her, making her feel safe. There was a warmth in his voice when he spoke. He would tell Lily about his dreams and his secret fears. He made her feel valued, and Lily needed that. In that loneliness, Jackson was like a harbor to her. One night, Jackson had held her hand, in the restaurant, in the dim light, as the candle flames danced. "Being with you brings me to life," he had said. His tone was so sincere that Lily had to believe him. Her eyes had filled with tears. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. But that same night, on the way home, she saw a notification on Jackson's phone. The screen was lit. Jackson was driving. It said, "Elena," and a short message, "I love you. Good night." It hit Lily like a punch to the gut. She felt sick. Questions began to snowball in her mind. Who was Elena? His wife? An ex-girlfriend? Why had Jackson never mentioned her? But the next day, Jackson explained everything. Elena was a former colleague, now living in another city. They had an emotional bond, but it was purely platonic, something from the past. Lily wanted to believe him, because believing was easier, because going back to the loneliness was worse. During the week, Jackson was constantly busy. Meetings, trips, training, conferences. Lily was starting to get suspicious, but fear kept her silent. What she feared wasn't learning the truth. It was not knowing what to do once she knew it. Sometimes she would lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking that she wasn't a part of Jackson's life, just a shadow. But in the morning, when she saw a message from him, she would forget everything. One Sunday morning, Lily couldn't take it anymore. She didn't know Jackson's home address, but she knew his office. On Google Maps, she had discovered a neighborhood where Jackson's car was frequently parked. It was a luxury district, with tree-lined streets and houses with gardens. She went there that morning. Her heart was pounding as if it would burst from her chest. Her hands were sweating. Her chest tightened with every breath. Jackson's car was there. in the driveway of a large white house. The garden was well kept, the flowers were colorful, and there were ornamental trees in front. A home, a real home, a family home. Lily watched from a distance. First, Jackson came out in his suit, then a woman, elegant, beautiful, mature. Black hair, a stylish dress, a smiling face. Elena. Jackson hugged her and kissed her forehead. The woman laughed and said something. Jackson laughed too. Then they got into the car together and drove away, as if there were no problems in their lives, as if Jackson didn't have another life at all. Lily collapsed onto a bench at the bus stop. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Her chest was tight. She struggled to breathe. Her whole body was shaking. She was barely holding herself together. Betrayal was no longer just a word. It was a wound, opening deep inside and beginning to bleed. It hurt with every breath. It bled with every thought. That night, Jackson texted, "I miss you. Can we meet tomorrow?" Lily didn't reply. She held the phone in her hand, staring at the screen, but her fingers didn't move. Throughout the week, Lily maintained her silence. Jackson seemed worried. He kept messaging, "Is everything okay? Why aren't you answering? I'm so worried about you." But Lily was trying to process everything. What should she do? Confront him and leave? Or just slip away quietly? She felt like a fool. How could she have been so blind? How could she have ignored all the signs? But then something happened. One evening, while Lily was sitting in a bar with some new friends she had met, she saw Jackson. He was with another woman, young, perhaps in her early 20s, with hair dyed pink, a girlish laugh, and bold clothes. Jackson had his arm around her, stroking her hair. The woman whispered something to him. Jackson laughed. Then they kissed, a kiss so long, so deep, that Lily felt nauseated. Lily froze. Her heart hammered in her chest. Her breath hitched. The sounds around her faded away. There was only that scene before her eyes. It was too clear to be a misunderstanding. Jackson wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was cheating on her, too. Who knew how many other women were in his life? Who knew how many more lies he had told? Something snapped inside Lily. It wasn't just anger. It was something deeper, darker than anger. Betrayal upon betrayal, lie upon lie. And most painful of all was how worthless Lily felt. She was just a toy, just a tool, just a distraction to fill Jackson's spare time. But she would no longer remain silent. The next morning, Lily found Elena's number. She had seen it on Jackson's phone once and remembered it, then found her on social media. The woman's profile wasn't private. Happy photos, family images, vacation shots with Jackson. Everything looked so perfect. Lily wrote Elena a message. Her fingers trembled as she typed, "I need to talk to you. About Jackson. It's very important." The reply came within half an hour. Lily was surprised by how quickly she responded. "I don't know who you are, but I'm ready to listen. Where can we meet?" They met at a cafe. It was a quiet spot in the city center. They sat at a corner table. Elena was very calm, but there was anxiety in her eyes. Her hands were clasped on the table, waiting for Lily. When Lily arrived, she didn't stand up. She just gestured with her head. "Sit down." Lily sat. Her hands were shaking. They ordered coffee, but Lily didn't touch hers. She didn't know how to start. But then she took a deep breath and began to tell the story. She explained that she had been with Jackson for 6 months, that she didn't know he was married, that she had become suspicious and followed him, and finally learned the truth. Then she described the scene she saw the previous night, him kissing another woman. She showed her all the details, the messages, the photos. Elena didn't speak. She just listened. Her face was like stone. Her eyes showed no expression as she looked at the screen, but her breathing grew heavy. When Lily finished, Elena closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. Her hands had balled into fists on the table. When she opened her eyes, they were glistening. She wasn't crying, but tears were pooling. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice wavered, but she tried to stay calm. For telling the truth, it took courage. Elena stood up, took her bag, and left. Lily watched her go. The woman's shoulders were shaking slightly. Her steps were slow, as if each one carried a great weight. When Jackson arrived home, Elena was sitting in the living room. She had a whiskey glass in her hand, one of Jackson's. She must have been drinking, as the glass was half empty. Her face was expressionless. When she saw her husband, she stood up. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Sit," she said in a quiet voice. Jackson frowned. He looked uneasy as he closed the door. "Did something happen? Are you okay?" Elena smiled, but it was a cold smile. Not a smile, but a distorted expression of pain. Everything happened. She picked up the phone from the table and placed it in front of Jackson. All the messages with Lily, the photos, the pictures of the other woman, the footage from the bar. The phone screen glowed. Every image was like a document of betrayal. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice trembled, but she fought to stay composed. The words barely escaped her lips. "Did I think I knew you? Was the man who slept beside me for 18 years you? Or was that a lie too?" Jackson froze. His face turned ashen. He reached out his hands, wanting to say something, but he couldn't speak. "Explain," Elena said. Her voice was rising. "Go on, lie again. Tell me you went to Atlanta. Tell me you were in training. Tell me you were in meetings. Go on, Jackson, you're a master at this. Lie to me." Jackson stood up, hands raised in a defensive gesture. "Elena, please listen, it's not what you think." "Shut up," Elena's voice exploded. The sound echoed off the living room walls. Tears had begun to stream down her face, but there was also fury. Her hands were clenched. "Don't even near me. Don't ever touch me again. Don't ever look at me again." 18 years, Jackson started. 18 years of lies, Elena screamed. "I believed you like a fool for 18 years. I thought I was married for 18 years. But no, I was the only one married to you. You were never married." Jackson stood there, head bowed, hands at his sides, helpless. Then he turned silently and walked out. When the door closed, Elena collapsed onto the sofa. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed uncontrollably. That night, Jackson slept alone in a hotel room, but he couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, watching his life crumble. Lily had left him. Elena had kicked him out. His reputation at work was beginning to falter as rumors spread quickly. His secretary was giving him strange looks. His colleagues kept their distance. His boss had called him into his office and said, "We don't want your private life reflecting on the business." Jackson tossed and turned in bed. He tried to write a message to Lily on his phone. He deleted it. He thought of writing to Elena. He deleted that, too. No words were enough. No apology was meaningful, because what he had done wasn't the kind of thing an apology could fix. Weeks passed. Jackson stayed in different hotels, then moved into a small apartment. His belongings were still at Elena's house, but he didn't go to get them. He didn't have the courage. One morning, weeks later, Jackson knocked on Elena's door. It was early. The sun hadn't quite risen. Elena opened the door. She was in her robe, her hair messy. Her face was tired but peaceful. It didn't look like she had been crying. The old spark was gone from her eyes, but there was serenity. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was cold. "To apologize," Jackson said. His voice was cracked, his throat tight. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry, Elena, truly." Elena nodded. There wasn't even pity on her face, only exhaustion. "Your apology means nothing now, Jackson. Absolutely nothing." As she was about to close the door, Jackson asked,
"Did you ever love me?" Elena paused. She held the door handle. She turned back. Her eyes met Jackson's. There was a long silence. "I did," she said. Her voice was flat. "But the man I loved doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did." The door closed. Jackson stood there in the hallway, alone. There was nothing left. Only a void remained.
Months passed. Jackson lost his job. The gossip was unbearable. He found a new job, but it wasn't the same. A smaller office, less prestige, less money. His friends drifted away. No one from his family called anymore. Lily moved to another city. Elena filed for divorce. Lawyers, courts, signatures. Everything ended in a cold, official manner. Jackson sometimes looked at Lily's social media. She looked happy. She had new friends, a new life. He looked at Elena's account too. She also seemed happy. She was traveling, spending time with friends, laughing. Both of them were happier without Jackson. Years later, Jackson was sitting in a cafe. He was alone. His hair had turned completely white. There were deep lines on his face. His hands shook slightly. His eyes were even hollower now. He stared out the window. A young couple was walking down the street, laughing at each other, holding hands. The woman whispered something to the man. He laughed and kissed her. Jackson watched them. A strange pain stirred inside him. Once he had been that happy, or so he thought. Perhaps he had never been happy. Perhaps he was just living inside a void waiting to be filled. Perhaps he had never truly loved Elena or Lily. Perhaps he had never been able to love anyone. Because to love, one must first love oneself, and Jackson hated himself. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He looked at old messages. Elena's last message was still there, from years ago. "I don't forgive you, but I'm moving on for myself. I hope you can forgive yourself one day." Jackson turned off the phone. He took the last sip of his coffee. It was bitter and cold, but he didn't care. He stood up, put on his coat, and left. The air outside was cold. The wind blew. Leaves swirled on the ground. The sky was gray and overcast. He began to walk. He didn't know where he was going. He just walked. He shoved his hands into his pockets. His head was down. In the back streets, in a lonely corner, he leaned against a wall. He looked at the sky. There were no stars, only darkness and silence. That deep, painful silence he had spent years running from, years suppressing. There was nowhere left to run. There was no one left to fill it. There was only himself. And facing himself was harder than anything else. A single tear escaped his eye. It was cold, trickling quickly down his cheek. Then another. He wasn't sobbing. He was just melting, slowly, silently, melting away. No one heard. No one saw. Only the darkness was a witness, and the darkness said nothing. Jackson stood there for a long time. The wind blew, shaking his frame, but he didn't move. Eventually, he straightened up, wiped his eyes, and continued walking. He didn't know where he was going. Perhaps he was going nowhere. He just walked, as if walking forever, until he vanished, and the city lights went out, one by one. Thank you for listening. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next story.